They say there are moments when even a prince forgets how to breathe. For Prince Harry, that moment came without warning. Just an ordinary day turned extraordinary in a single broadcast. On the television before him sat investigative author Tom Bower, his voice calm, deliberate, carrying the weight of accusation. He wasn't speculating. He was declaring. He claimed that new evidence, paired with forgotten testimonies, suggested that Meghan Markle might already be a grandmother through a daughter she allegedly had long before meeting Prince Harry. At first, Prince Harry laughed. He thought it was another cruel twist from the rumor mill, another desperate attempt to tear down the woman he loved. But as Tom Bower began displaying photos and timelines, faces that looked eerily familiar, the laughter died in his throat. Witnesses say his smile faded, his body went rigid, and for a moment he looked like a man seeing a ghost. When the screen went dark, the silence in the room was heavy enough to shatter glass. Inside palace walls, confusion spread like wildfire. Advisors avoided his eyes. Aides whispered in corridors, afraid to ask the one question everyone was thinking. Could it be true? Could Meghan Markle really have had a child decades before the royal fairy tale began? Outside those walls, the story was already burning across the internet. And at the center of it all stood one man the world had almost forgotten, Joe Giuliano. For years, the name had been erased from Meghan's narrative, whispered about in obscure forums and late-night gossip threads. Once rumored to be her first husband, Joe Giuliano had become a phantom, erased from the record as if he had never existed. But suddenly, that ghost had returned to life. According to sources close to his family in Chicago, Joe Giuliano had broken his silence at last. They claimed he shared photographs, personal ones, untouched by fame or filters, images that could rewrite Meghan Markle's past entirely. One photograph reportedly shows Joe Giuliano outside a small cafe, holding a little girl in his arms. Her expression is soft, her smile uncertain, but it's her eyes that draw you in. Dark, familiar, unmistakably Meghan's. Side-by-side comparisons allegedly reveal a haunting resemblance. The same smile, the same faint freckles across the bridge of her nose, even the same left cheek dimple that Meghan Markle flashes in every royal portrait. Another image captures the girl in profile. And that's where Joe Giuliano's features take over. The straight nose, the calm gaze, the steadiness in her posture. Two faces fused into one. A mirror that time tried to hide. Those who saw the images describe a chill running through them. One family friend whispered, "You can't unsee it. Once you see her face, you just know." For years, the whispers of a hidden child had lived in the shadows, dismissed as conspiracy, forgotten as gossip. But now the whispers had a face. And faces don't lie. Long before the palaces and photo ops, there was Las Vegas, the mid-1990s, a tiny chapel just off the Strip. According to multiple sources, Meghan Markle and Joe Giuliano exchanged vows in secret. No photographers, no headlines, just two young lovers chasing freedom. It didn't last. Within months, the paperwork for annulment was filed. But this was no ordinary annulment. Legal experts who later reviewed Nevada's record said the file didn't just close, it vanished. Entire entry numbers were missing. Clerks remembered fragments, a nervous young woman, a quiet young man, and an older attorney murmuring, "Make it disappear." The record was sealed tighter than most, disappearing from both physical and digital archives. No license. No photos, no trace. As if the marriage had never existed. Yet those who were there remembered. They said it wasn't just a breakup, it was an erasure. A clean wipe designed to protect a secret too large to name. Years later, insiders close to the Giuliano family claimed the silence wasn't betrayal. It was an agreement. Behind closed doors, the families made a choice. The Giulianos would raise the child quietly, giving her a normal life. In return, Meghan Markle's name would vanish from the narrative forever. No calls. No contact. No acknowledgement. A family acquaintance would later describe it simply, "It wasn't about shame. It was about survival." Everyone walked away with a promise, and that promise was silence. For Joe Giuliano, silence became a lifelong burden. For Meghan Markle, it became freedom. The freedom to rebuild, to start over, to chase a new destiny untouched by the past. But secrets don't dissolve, they wait. And as the years went on, that promise of silence began to weigh heavier with every passing day. Because time, no matter how carefully managed, always finds a way to reveal what was meant to stay hidden. As the years faded into silence, Joe Giuliano seemed to vanish completely. No interviews, no sightings, just a name erased from memory. But silence doesn't mean peace, it means something is waiting. And one night, that waiting ended. After decades of secrecy, Joe Giuliano finally opened the drawer that had haunted him for years. Inside were photographs, old, sun-faded, quietly powerful. Pictures of a child who looked like no one and yet exactly like someone. He hesitated before showing them, but once those images escaped, the truth had already begun to unravel. The first photo appeared on a private message board, then another through an anonymous email chain. Within hours, the images had spread everywhere. The girl in the pictures, now a woman, was the mirror image of Meghan Markle. Same smile, same eyes, even the subtle dimple on her left cheek that fans have memorized from royal portraits. When Prince Harry saw the comparisons online, insiders say he froze. For a man who had built his life around honesty, the shock was unbearable. What if everything he believed about his wife's past had been curated, rewritten, protected by silence? Behind palace doors, tension thickened. Advisors avoided the subject entirely. Every question carried the weight of accusation. Tom Bower's revelation had detonated like a bomb, and the fragments were impossible to sweep away. Investigators revisited records from Nevada, and what they found wasn't evidence. It was absence. Missing case numbers, vanished paperwork, legal gaps that shouldn't exist unless someone had made them vanish. Even retired court clerks remembered fragments. A young couple, a rushed filing, and an older attorney murmuring words that now echo through history. Make it disappear. And it did. The marriage, the annulment, the trail, all of it gone. But people remember what paper forgets. According to those who once lived near the Giuliano family in Chicago, there was always a mystery. A young girl who visited often but was never introduced as a relative. Her features stood out, familiar, magnetic, impossible to ignore. She grew up quietly, shielded from questions, unaware that her life carried the ghost of a hidden name. Then came the age debate, the timeline that just didn't fit. When journalists started cross-checking Meghan Markle's academic records, things didn't add up. Classmates from her supposed graduating year were nearly a decade older. Photos from Northwestern's old theater department showed her alongside students who finished college in the early 90s. If she was truly born in 1977, as some insiders whispered, then everything aligned. She would have been 20 during her alleged marriage to Joe Giuliano, old enough to make her own decisions, old enough to have a child. Shift the numbers, and suddenly the missing years make sense. A photograph surfaced soon after, a woman in her 30s standing beside a lake cafe in Chicago. Her face calm, her posture familiar. Commenters called her the reflection. And the internet, as it always does, turned into a courtroom. Side-by-side comparisons flooded timelines. People slowed down videos, traced cheekbones, matched eye color. And everywhere you looked, the same question echoed. Could this really be her daughter? Meanwhile, Prince Harry grew distant. According to palace insiders, he refused to comment publicly, but was described as shaken, betrayed, and protective. Protective of, and protective. Protective of whom, Meghan or the truth, no one knew. But what truly frightened him wasn't the rumor itself. It was her silence, because Meghan Markle didn't deny it. She didn't confirm it either. She simply said nothing. And sometimes silence says more than words ever could. On the other side of the ocean, Joe Giuliano's relatives were divided. Some believed the secret should have stayed buried. Others said it was time to end the lie. One relative allegedly told a journalist, "We kept quiet for 30 years. But we didn't do it to protect Meghan. We did it to protect the child. And now the child's a woman. She has the right to know." That single statement sent the story spiraling again. Talk shows, podcasts, and gossip sites dissected it line by line. Every theory found new life. Was this woman in the photos aware of who her mother might be? Had she been told the truth? Or was she about to discover it the same way the world did, through a viral headline? Tom Bower refused to comment further, insisting his work spoke for itself. But others hinted he wasn't done. One producer who worked with him claimed more evidence existed. Documents, private testimonies, sealed statements. If true, it meant the storm had only just begun. For Meghan Markle, the fallout was catastrophic. Her image, carefully built on control, reinvention, and perfect poise, suddenly seemed fragile. Every old interview clip was replayed, every inconsistent detail magnified. Even gestures began to feel different. That famous smile now looked like armor. Still, the most haunting part wasn't the media frenzy. It was the quiet aftermath, the human cost. Prince Harry, caught between devotion and doubt. Meghan, staring down ghosts she thought she buried decades ago. Joe Giuliano, living with the guilt of silence. And somewhere, a woman with brown eyes and an unspoken story watching her own reflection, wondering which half of her face belongs to the past. People say truth is light, but sometimes truth burns. It forces you to face what you buried. It doesn't ask permission, it just arrives. And maybe that's what's happening now. Maybe the photographs weren't meant for revenge, but for reckoning. Maybe this isn't scandal. It's history catching up, because every secret eventually finds its witness. And now that the world has seen those faces, there's no going back. The cameras will fade. The noise will quiet. But in some quiet room, Prince Harry will look at Meghan Markle, and she will know. This time, silence won't save her. Not from the past. Not from the truth. And not from the eyes of the child who finally looks back.